All right, we just hit 8 o'clock. I know we're missing a couple people, including one of our consultants who should be on the call this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and give them a couple of minutes. In the meantime, feel free, if any of you have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat while we're waiting. We'll have some time for questions. All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. If you all would like to turn your cameras on, you certainly can. More than happy to see all of you. And if you would, for me really quickly, in the chat box, if you could, just let us know if you are a collegiate attendee of President's Academy or were an attendee of President's Academy, or if you are in alumni or faculty, perhaps. If you could go ahead and drop that in the chat box, that would be super helpful. Awesome. Looks like we do have a faculty advisor, which is great. Collegiate, awesome. Alumni, great. And I know I see Stacy, our Northeastern PVP on here as well, and Brian, who was a small group facilitator, and Brandon, who's a staff member, and he was a small group facilitator as well. And Joe is here, another facilitator, which is great. This is awesome. Okay, cool. So hopefully we have a couple more people join us. I know one of our consultants, who is also a facilitator, should be joining us. I don't see him here yet, and he has a portion of his own to present. But if he doesn't, or if he's not able to make it, that's okay. We still have a couple great things to review and go over. So for those of you who do not know me, and unfortunately I was not at President's Academy this year due to a family emergency that occurred and had to be gone that weekend. But my name is Luke Shamer, and I am our Director of Education at Delta Sigma Pi. And I'm super happy to be here with you all and debrief a little bit and review some of the content and strategies that you all learned about or facilitated at President's Academy. And for those of you who weren't in attendance, this session will still be helpful in the sense that you will get an idea for some of those concepts covered. And we'll talk a little bit about how all of us, whether collegiates, alumni, faculty advisors, facilitators, can sort of help out in executing on these action plans that our collegiates created, which is great. So one of the first items on our agenda, and in fact, I'll just go through our agenda very briefly. So the first thing we're going to do is review how to use Birkman or apply Birkman if you are uncertain of someone's Birkman colors. So say they have not taken the assessment, how do you actually pin down maybe that person's interests or usual behavior or stress or needs behavior, right? So that's something that we'll review for a few minutes here. It's something that I think is important for us to touch on. And then we're going to talk about the action plans a little bit. So for our collegiates, you may remember your action plan. If you don't, I have a list of all of them. And we might call out a couple of those, and I'll ask our collegiates to maybe answer to the question, how is it going? How are your action plans going? And have those been implemented? And have you faced any roadblocks or obstacles, and maybe how we can help? And then after we talk about the action plans, we'll sort of get to, alumni, faculty advisors, and some of our facilitators, and answering the question on how have you been able to support, or how could you support our collegiates as they exit President's Academy, and that will be good information for our collegiates who are in attendance. And then talk about some key takeaways for you all. So our collegiates who were in attendance at President's Academy, and even some of the facilitators, or those of you who weren't there or have encountered some of this content since, what have been some key takeaways and what are some of the pieces of content that have been most helpful? And then we'll leave time open for questions. So if you do have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat box, and I will we'll get to those toward the end. And otherwise, you can hang on to those if you have them. So speaking about Birkman and these Birkman colors, and maybe how to identify someone whose colors you're unsure of because they haven't taken the assessment, or maybe you don't have access to it, right? So, you're a chapter president or another collegiate member, or even, some of our alumni thinking about applying these concepts. How do you figure out, who is who and how these things are working outside of those who have had an assessment, right? Who have taken an assessment. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen very briefly and open up our PowerPoint here. So this should look familiar for some of you all. This was what you had seen at President's Academy, right? And when we're thinking about how do we identify those folks who, again, maybe haven't taken the Birkman assessment, or you don't know exactly where they land, how do you use the skills and some of these tactics that you learned in President's Academy to apply to your chapter, right? Or to apply to the work that you're doing, because not everyone in your chapter has taken this, right? And outside of what we do for President's Academy, it's actually a quite expensive assessment. So it wouldn't be probably, fiscally reasonable for all of us to take this, right? But how can you take what you learned and apply it to the work that you're doing? So here's our four quadrants, right? So we have the red, green, and then we have our yellow and blue, right? And those are the four. And people are going to fall into these categories for interests, their stress and their needs, and their usual behavior. But again, if they haven't taken this, how do you drill down and figure out, okay, where does someone land, and then leverage what you learned in President's Academy to, work with that person, right? So, for when we're thinking about interests, and you're really getting to know someone and figuring out, how they operate, the best way to go about doing this is to engage in conversations. As a chapter president, as a collegiate member, or an officer, I should say, you should be engaging in conversations with your chapter members and with your other officers. And so these are some questions that you can ask to figure out, okay, where do they fall in terms of interest? What do they like to do for hobbies? What do they like to do in their free time? What do they like about the activity, right? So for some, just as an example, someone really might enjoy hiking, right? And their answer for why they enjoy hiking might be, well, I can just get away from it all, right? It lets me escape. I can sort of detach and, get away from work, get away from people, and just be out in nature, right? For another person, their answer to why they enjoy hiking might be, hey, I really like the high level of activity. I like, climbing or getting out and really working out and the physical activity of it, right? They're not just, prodding along. They might be trail running. They might be hiking, or summiting something, right? So the reason as to why they enjoy that activity can actually help you figure out, where they're falling on this quadrant, right? Of, interest level in terms of red, green, yellow, and blue. So someone who's maybe more red for their interest level really might enjoy hiking because it is that physical activity aspect. They're the doer. They like to get out and do and push themselves. But then for someone who might like to detach and get away, well, that could maybe even fall into our blue, right? Or even our yellow, depending on their why. So these are some questions that you can ask to sort of drill down on interests, right? Okay, so let's go down to usual behavior. Now, this is one that certainly we talk about a little bit at President's Academy. The final piece on stress and needs is what we really sort of harp on and what we talk about most. But in terms of usual behavior, this one's a bit easier, right? This is what we already do as humans. We sort of, watch someone and observe someone and their behaviors. Are they more extroverted? That would be our reds and our greens. Or are they a bit more introverted? That would be our yellows and blues, right? So depending on how they act in just normal, maybe group setting or even one-on-one would give you a good idea. But these are some good questions too. If you're having conversations with others, what are some of your normal behaviors? What are you like on a good day and how would others describe you? And really getting to that good day question, this gives you some insight, right? And it leads to our next point. What are you like on a good day? Well, if someone says, I'm not having the best day, observe their behavior in that moment too. That's going to give you that insight into perhaps the most important piece, which is that, stress and needs behavior, right? And how do we get there? It's, less questions and more our observations of what they need and actually digging deep into maybe what that person is expecting from you as a leader, especially as a chapter president, right? What are they expecting from you if they need something or if maybe they're stressed out as an officer? And this is sort of where we dig into the blue: individual reassurance, suggestive direction. Your greens, that's individual approval, defined authority. So again, even if they haven't taken the assessment, you can certainly figure out where they're landing depending on what they tell you they need in moments of stress. But it's also up to you, as a chapter president or as a leader, to figure out where your team is landing in that moment. Do they need something? Are they stressed out, and why? So that was just something that I wanted to bring to the table, especially as our collegiates left President's Academy. And you might be thinking, okay, how do I apply this to what I'm doing, right? How do I apply this to the actual work I'm doing in the chapter when they haven't taken the Birkman assessment? And that gives you, a collection of questions and some approaches there for what you might be able to do. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, and I know we only have until 8:30, and I see Aiden joined us, our consultant. So hey, Aiden, and we'll get to Aiden's piece here soon. But I want to switch direction a little bit in terms of the action plans that you all created and asking for a little bit of participation from our collegiates, hopefully. I have our action plans queued up on my computer, so I see our names and I can sort of filter through. But any collegiates who are here, and I know we have a handful, would you like to share maybe your action plan? We don't need it verbatim, but the plan that you devised, and then what has been your progress on that? How is it going? And I'll give a moment for you guys to collect your thoughts here as we transition, but would love to hear from at least one or two of our collegiates. And if you need help remembering your action plan, again, I have those in front of me. We might do a cold call here too.
I can't quite remember what my specific action plan was, but I know that I imagine it was close to engagement because we've been focusing a lot on engagement and how that looks differently for everyone. And so at our first e-board meeting back from President's Academy, we talked about and a lot of it was influenced by the Birkman of how people are expecting different things and show up in different ways. And so, and I've talked to Aiden about this actually, but we kind of rehashed our point system this semester, to make sure that brothers are being rewarded for, yes, there are bare minimums of how, and for context, I'm from the University of Arizona chapter, the Gamma Psi chapter, and we have now with our new pledge class 130 people in our chapter, or actually no, 160 now. So a lot of brothers there and pledges too. So yeah, trying to figure out a way that we can capture everybody's individual interests and keep engagement high and hit for that 80-20 type of thing. And so yeah, we pretty much just did a rehash of our point system to capture all the different ways that people can be involved.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So it sounds like you've actually, implemented, like you said, changing the point system. So it sounds like the action has been taken and then you're going to see the outcome of that, right? So that's really great. And I appreciate you sharing. Anybody else wanting to share or would like to share their action plan? And again, if you forget, I do have them queued up. So if you need me to pull it up really quickly, I can do that.
I can go. I just found mine. So there were kind of three things that I had written down that I wanted to focus on for this semester. One of which is we have a lot of people who want to go through recruitment. And it's growing very quickly, the amount of people. So we were kind of falling behind, I guess, in our ability to accommodate that many people. Um, but since then, we were able to, for recruitment this semester, we were able to find bigger classrooms. We were able to work with the other fraternities more to create events that lasted longer so that we were able to have more people coming in and out of our different events. So recruitment was really successful this semester because we were able to accommodate that many people. And then encouraging innovation within our positions and alumni engagement. So I wanted to come up with some new things for us to do. I feel like we've fallen into the trap of doing a lot of the same events every semester because we partner with the same companies and do the same community service events. But I've given a lot of creative freedom to our different positions and different chairs, and they've come up with some really cool stuff. So
That's awesome. Those are lofty goals. I love that. And yeah, I know that post President's Academy, we write these action plans, right? And I think subconsciously we store them and you're sort of thinking about it as you go. But I know I called you all up on the spot to say, hey, share your action plan. And it might have been hard to find. But yeah, Kate and Issa, and correct me if I pronounce that incorrectly. But I appreciate you both sharing. That's awesome. And it sounds like you both have made progress, which is great. And again, lofty goals, and that's really fantastic. So at this point, if anyone else wants to share, please jump in. I'll allow 30 seconds if anybody else wants to jump in with their action plan.
I'd like to share. So I'm from West Virginia University, and we're kind of in the same boat as that we have a relatively large chapter and we're continuously growing. So something that I wanted to focus on within our action plan is chapter engagement. We recently included a chapter engagement position within our executive committee, which has been really, really helpful. It gives a specific person a specific job to do so that we make sure that we're kind of hearing the voice of every member within our chapter. So one way that we have come about that is that we're starting to implement small groups into our what we do as a chapter. So that could be potentially like dinners, it could be going to a workout class at our student rec center. But it's putting people in groups based on their diversity, but also based on what their potential interests are. So that's kind of in the process of being planned at the moment. So I don't know how that will work, but I'm hopeful that it will work moving forward. And that was something that I gathered from President's Academy.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. So sort of those grouping ideas, right? And sort of based on interest. And that's fantastic. I'm really excited to hear. Hopefully we can stay in touch. All of us, I'd love to hear how this goes. And we'll be sending out another survey, probably I'd say around April, maybe mid-April, to sort of gauge where you all are at that point. And it's not just you all, it will be all of the chapter presidents who attended or other officer if there was someone else there. So we're really excited to hear how these are going. And I think, in the future, we could probably do a bit better of a job communicating back out your action plan because you write it and then we take it down and then it might get lost or it just might be hard to remember. So in the future, better communication of those plans to sort of keep you all on track and on task. I would love to hear, maybe from someone different or maybe from someone who has shared already. In terms of the actual creation of your action plan, do you feel like you were given too much sort of room for interpretation on creation of the action plan? Do you feel like it could have been more specific? The directions could have maybe been a bit more specific. And I'm hopefully not steering you toward an answer, but one thing I noticed in reviewing these was they were really way, way different from each other. And that could be a good thing, but it could also maybe be tough in terms of drilling down and getting to what you really need to get to. So how do you feel about that process, like at President's Academy, of creating those action plans? Did you feel like you could have used more direction, or was it about right, maybe even less direction? Any thoughts on the process? And maybe even from facilitators as well, thinking about how things went or any feedback received.
When I was creating my own goals for myself and our chapter, I broke it up by category. So I had like a recruitment goal, a community service goal. We do a big community service event called Thon, and so I had a Thon goal, just like for success throughout the semester. So it was breaking up into little groups, and I feel like that would be helpful if we had like an engagement goal, a, recruitment, whatever.
Yeah, Kate, that's a great idea. And I'm saying that because we just talked about it. So Jeremy Levine, who's our executive director, we just talked about this yesterday. I sat down with him in person, and he said, "Oh, you know what? I think it would be really cool to have a recruiting goal and, a membership goal." So you hit the nail on the head for what we were thinking. That's a really cool idea. I love that. Any other thoughts on the action plan creation from any of our collegiates or our facilitators? Or anybody else? Any thoughts on that process?
I guess I could say something.
Sure.
We kind of had something similar, or I kind of had something similar. As far as recruitment, we didn't necessarily hit the number we wanted, but one of my main goals was communication between like the e-board and the chapter. Like I'm trying to take like I don't want to say be nosy in everybody's life, but like kind of make sure like if we're falling off, like someone can pick up. I know I used to be VP of Scholarship and Awards, and I never knew what was going on in eBoard if it didn't concern me. So I'm making sure like everyone is like actively doing something. And then as far as like in the chapter, we did have to address like those hard, like not hard conversations, but like those difficult conversations because we had attendance drops. And as far as recruitment, like we're a very small chapter. So like
Sure.
it was a little bit harder to meet those goals than the other goals we planned. So
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that insight. And I think to your last point about it being maybe a little harder to hit that goal because you are a smaller chapter, I think that's a great reason to even set the goal in the first place, right? If it's really tough, set the bar high and really push. And I think that's what we're trying to get you all to do. Every attendee, right, is to set the bar high and really push for it and try to achieve it. And it certainly sounds like, that's where you're aiming, which is great. So I appreciate you sharing that. Cool. Okay, so I am going to give Aiden just a couple minutes. He's a consultant for us to maybe chime in on resources for you all, especially in thinking about executing the action plans and maybe just some high level information and maybe some resources to share from Aiden just to give you all maybe a firmer grasp of where you can go or maybe who you can reach out to if you have questions or maybe you're struggling to meet a goal or what resources are on tap.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. Hello, everyone. My name is Aiden Cannon. I am the current educational leadership consultant for Delta Sigma Pi Central Office. Essentially, what that means is I'm kind of the front line of defense for Central Office. Pretty much, if you have any questions, they come to me first, and then I can kind of decide if I want to answer it or if I want to send it off to someone else. I'm also kind of the bridge from central office to the collegiate chapters. So during the semester, I'm on the road, visiting chapters, answering questions they have, just checking in on them, making sure they're okay. Not disciplinary. I would not want that job. Not a fun job to have. Really just my job is just a service to collegiate chapters, just making sure that everyone has everything they need, all their questions answered, maybe even showing you stuff that you didn't even know you needed, and so that kind of stuff. I know I met with Isa over Zoom, just to one of those routine kind of check-ins to see how she's doing. I had her goals pulled up, so I have access to those, and I'm able to, if you just want to send an email and say, hey, I'm struggling with, defining some of these goals, or, I'm not necessarily, no one else has the buy-in that I do. What are some different ways I can try that? That's kind of a call that I can set up and just say, hey, like, I have your goals right here. Let's go through them. Where are we falling short? Where are you excelling? And where can we kind of meet in the middle with that? Um, as far as resources, when I'm on visits or, on those virtual calls, I try not to overwhelm the presidents or the executive committees as I'm meeting with them, just because there are so many different resources out there to access. And some of them are not necessarily completely up to date. And so we are currently, Jasmine and I are currently going through those and making sure that, is this the best possible information that we can have available? And if not, what is? So again, it's a two-way street. So getting that feedback from, you guys as presidents, and also, executive committee members, is crucial, just so that we know kind of what you're looking for. So we're able to provide that for you. So, um, just, I just try to encourage conversations to be, okay, you're doing all of this stuff great. Where can I help you? What is that zone that I can help you with? Or, what are some things that I can take from you to give to these other chapters that, aren't necessarily succeeding in the same areas that you are, and kind of link the two knowledge sets together.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Aiden. So hopefully that provides, for the collegiates here, some sense of where resources lie for you all. And Aiden can be a resource, and then I can also be a resource, right? So I know I wasn't there in person this year, but if you all need anything, or importantly, if you have any thoughts about the content for President's Academy, send ideas, right? Luke@dsp.org. You can send me ideas about the content in the program. I know we did the survey, but sometimes you sit with something for a while and your feelings and thoughts on it change, right? And you may have, one of those light bulb moments as you're working with your chapter on your action plan, maybe, right? Maybe you're thinking, oh, wow, it would have been great to know XYZ, and maybe we could implement that in the curriculum. Please send ideas, right? We're all ears. We're always trying to tweak and refine to better serve you all and make sure that you walk away with something really worthwhile. And I hope you all did. I'm certain you all had something to take away that was really positive. So I know we only have a few minutes left, and I did want to leave the floor for questions. And these questions could be directed, to me, could be directed to Aiden, and hopefully the couple facilitators that we have on here who were at President's Academy might be open to answering some questions as well. So any questions that you all have for us that we could potentially answer right now? And I'm looking through the chat really quick to see if we have any typed in questions. I don't see any. Okay. If nobody has anything, and on the collegiate side, I'll leave the floor open to, maybe, I know we have a faculty advisor and we have some alumni in here as well. Any questions from you all, maybe about the program, or for our collegiates, or our facilitators? Okay, great. All right, so we are pretty much right at time. I just want to say thank you to collegiates, to alumni, to our facilitators for joining us, our faculty advisors. We really appreciate you taking some time to come and meet with us and follow up on President's Academy and what you all have been doing. It was really great to hear about your action plans and some of the progress that you all have made. That's awesome. And hopefully you're taking things away from each other too, right? So hopefully staying in contact with other chapter presidents, and even with some of the facilitators. I know some of them are open to that. So stay in touch, stay connected, and definitely don't hesitate to reach out, whether it's to Aiden for resources for your chapter, or to me for ideas about President's Academy, or any educational programming you feel like would be a benefit for you all, especially in achieving not only your action plans, but your vision for your chapter and your officer's vision for your chapter. We're here for you, and we're super happy that you all joined us. And again, any questions, feel free to direct to me or Aiden. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Luke.
PTPAD.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Have
care.
a good night.
Yes, you as well. Thank you.